Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Everyman's Arsenal, a podcast where we kind of do a deep dive behind the influencers or the products that you see on our channel and also get a chance to talk to some of our members, and that's who we have today. So today we're going to take some time and talk to Joe from Thin Line Defense. Joe,
What's
thanks,
up?
thanks for joining us.
Yeah, long time no see.
Yeah, I know, man. That's one of the things we talked about when I had Walsh on for our first episode is getting all of the guys from the team on and just kind of letting our viewers or our listeners have a chance to learn more about us and our backgrounds and things like that. So appreciate you being willing to join us and love the holiday decorations that I see your wife must have
Yeah,
set up.
yeah. So I'm up in our dining room. This time, not down in the basement, trying to get good internet.
Yeah, on a computer this time, folks, not on a cell
Yep,
phone.
yep. I do own a
It does
computer. This is
it does
proof.
exist. um, one of the things that I think for those that haven't joined us for our Thursday night live chats, where we've talked a lot about the origins of TLD, it's one of my favorite stories because I I was kind of in those shoes, like in the military and having leave that I had to take, use or lose. And so I love hearing the story. But for those of you, for those that haven't heard it before, can you go through kind of what started you down this road of actually starting Thin Line Defense?
Yeah, and I'll actually back up just a little bit and give
Yeah.
a little bit more of the story for people that have heard it. So that kind of started all the way back in my mechanicing days in the Air Force in Iraq. So I was in Iraq. There was scrap steel laying around, and I wanted to build like any type of a blade. So I built myself like the huge, straight up Conan sword. Like it was mild steel. It wasn't hardened. It wasn't a true sword. Just flat stock that I cut the big, huge handguards on both sides. It looked like a Conan sword. Put like an axe grind on it, and it would chop 2x4 in half by sheer weight. So I had to leave that behind, unfortunately, and I've always told myself, well, one day I'll make my own knife, like a legit knife, hardened and everything. And yeah, I had use or lose. I think I took 2 weeks. I was broke, so I didn't go anywhere. Just stuck around the house for 2 weeks, and after like a week, I was bouncing off the walls. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try the whole knife thing. I had a old saw blade that I've just kept around for that reason, and I used the material removal method. I didn't form anything. I just shaped it by grinding and filing. Made what is it? The K-bar retention knife.
The
I made
TDI
a
nerd.
Yeah, I made a clone of that, and then showed it to you guys. All excited, all happy that I got this accomplished. Hardened it in the whole 9 yards. Equalized it in the wife's oven inside the house. And I was all excited, showed you guys, and you're the one that wanted to buy the very first one. And I'm like, oh, dang it. So I sold you the very first one, and then I sold all of you guys the next couple. I think it wasn't until like the seventh or eighth knife where I'm like, okay, I don't have anything for me. I had been
Yeah.
giving them away or selling them. So I decided to make myself like a survival hatchet, I guess you could call, out of a big saw blade, something super light that I could put in my pack. I was doing a lot of hiking at the time. Nothing going to cut down big trees, but just something that I can use if I ever got lost out in the woods. So that's what I did. Made that, and then you're the one that came at me with the 1095 steel. So I
Hmm.
bought some flat stock of 1095. I made your custom. What do you call it? The master key or something like that.
Master key. Yeah, it's like a pry bar knife all in one.
Yeah. So I made that, and then you want it Cerakoted. So I was like, well, I
Yeah.
have a compressor. I mean, if you buy the Cerakote, then I'll do it. So I went to Harbor Freight, bought that purple. Anybody that's been to Harbor Freight looking at air guns, you know what I'm talking about, like a purple detail paint sprayer, and brought it home with some stuff for the compressor, to the water separator and stuff like that. Tried it out, used our old toaster oven, barely fit. Cerakoted that black, cured it in the toaster oven, And then after that, I started getting into doing Cerakoting, building guns, stuff like that. Bought a stand-up electric smoker
Mm-hmm.
in order to cure bigger things like handguards and whatnot. And then from there, it turned into Death Dealer knives, right? So the very
Yeah.
first, at the very beginning of Death Dealer knives, and then we wanted to get into YouTube world, and we wanted to. It's not just about knives. I wanted to do something with my friends, not just on my own. So got my three best buddies in the world. Pitched you guys the whole thing, like, hey, let's do this and do some YouTube video. Let's just mess around. We'll never be
Yeah.
big, but let's mess around. So changed the name to Thin Line Defense, CO. What a lot of people don't know is CO doesn't stand for company. Not when I named this. CO stood for Colorado because the initial thought was we would do me in Colorado, you in Washington, and Cody and Walsh in Nebraska. So your guys' division would be, Thin Line Defense WA and Thin Line Defense NE. So Thin Line Defense CO, actually Colorado. And then I ran out of time. I couldn't do it. I'm traveling all the time. I'm probably gone 250, 300 days out of the year. So I couldn't
Yeah.
do
That's
anything
crazy.
with this. So I passed it off to Walsh, and good thing I did. He's very, I don't know, cinematic. Um, does a great job, and he's always been at the forefront of the YouTube side of things. So
Yeah.
yeah, it
Now,
started
one
out
of
just
the
a project to do with buddies, and it's turned into
yeah.
this.
Well, and one of the things you talked about too, well, I kind of prepped Joe like some of the questions I want to ask, but one of the things I didn't write down just kind of came up is when you Cerakote, you do stuff you basically skip a step that a lot of Cerakoters, or at least a lot of Cerakoters that I know locally do, which let's say they were Cerakoting a handguard, they will oh, dude, I'm drawing a blank
Beat
now.
blast.
They'll blast the anodizing off and then Cerakote the raw aluminum. And you don't do that. And there's been some people that have kind of come out and given you some flack on that. But I don't know, it kind of made sense to me. Why is it that you don't do that?
So there are two schools of thought. I think my school, which is probably completely wrong, and then everybody else's. So yeah, you can media blast all the anodizing off of the metal, but that leaves bare aluminum, right? And with Cerakote and paint. I don't care how tough the paint is. It's still paint. It's prone to chipping, scratching, anything like that. If you're hard on your gun, which I am, mine aren't just showcases. I believe that the Cerakote is going to either wear down from going in and out of a holster all the time, or it's going to get messed up by hitting stuff. So my way of thinking, in if I get the surface as clean as possible with acetone, depending if the gun's been used a lot, I'll still bake it and heat the oil out of it and acetone it again. But if I
Mm-hmm.
get it super clean and prepped, and then I paint over top of it, if anything were to scratch, flake, whatever, wear down, then you still have the original finish underneath. So you don't have to take it back and get it recerakoted again. You can
Yeah.
just leave it the way it is. And that's one of my favorite looks anyway, the distress, like beat up look. So the more they get beat up, the better it looks, in my opinion. But I haven't really seen a problem. I've seen some of my gun that get used hard. And yeah, I guess the most damage I've seen is on, actually Sean from We Like Shooting, and where the cases are ejecting and hitting the deflector. And
Mm-hmm.
you can see some black underneath that now. But I believe that the Cerakote wouldn't hold up through that no matter what, no matter if I stripped it down to bare aluminum or painted over top of the anodizing.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't, then it'd be bright silver color, aluminum color, and aluminum doesn't rust; it turns white, so it does oxidize.
Oh, okay.
So
So it's just
now that
another
I'm
way
being
of
shipped off, it's still protected because anodizing's still on the gun.
yeah. And I have it. I mean, I have some of your Cerakote guns, and I'm probably not as hard on them as you are on yours, but I haven't had any issues with mine where you get to the point of having that oxidizing or that pitting or rust, not rusting, but corrosion on the aluminum.
Yeah, I mean, in the car world, that's where my main love is, and is in the car world. There's two ways of doing it on car too, right? You can sand it down to bare metal, which takes forever, or you can use sanding blocks and stuff and get it down to just where everything even. There might be still some paint and some, you know, primer left on the vehicle and stuff, and then you paint over top of that. So
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know.
Now, now, what would you say kind of, or if there was anything that kind of prepped you for that? Like you talked a little bit about your maintenance days in the Air Force, but what is your background, if you're willing to get into it? That kind of, I think some people are like, these guys aren't. These guys are regular guys. They're not special forces or anything like that. And I think they kind of miss the idea of that's what we're trying to come across as. But what's your background, either in law enforcement or military, that you're willing to share?
Yeah, so I'm a military brat. I'm born on an Air Force base. My mom, my dad, my biological mom, my grandfather, all actually retired from the Air Force. My other grandfather went drafted into the Army, did his time in the Army, and then went to reserves for a little bit. So I've been around the military. I knew I'm going into the military since I was like 8 years old. Took my ASVAB in the 10th grade and went into the Air Force based on those scores. So went into the Air Force, guaranteed job in vehicle maintenance. I wasn't because I'm a military brat. I knew all the game to be played. So I had a guaranteed job before I ever shipped off to basic. Shipped off to basic a month after 9/11.
Mm.
Yeah, so went in a mechanic. I loved turning wrenches, but I was kind of getting up in rank, and I deployed a couple times and got denied like forward deploying going downrange because I'm a mechanic. Like there was an empty seat with out fixing EOD Humvees in the middle of Iraq. I heloed in by myself. I'm fixing their Humvees, just getting everything that they needed. I got them all done, and they had a couple missions to go on, and one with a post blast ID had detonated. And I got denied going out, even though there was an empty seat in their Humvee. So that really bothered me. And then as you move up in rank in vehicle maintenance, they literally, as an E6, they take your toolbox away. Like, oh, congratulations, here's E6. Wheel your toolbox back there, and you have to turn it in. So I was coming up close to testing for E6, and that's when I decided to have the talk with my wife and develop a game plan. I actually started training for SEER,
Oh,
and
okay.
I trained for SEER for 6 months. It was legit, man. I was good to go because they had told me there a waiver for seasonal allergies, and when it was time to apply, they said, "Just kidding, there is no waiver." So then I went, yeah, I went into the organization. I won't go into that part of it, but went from
Yeah.
mechanic to a different. But it's in the Air Force. I'm not special forces. I'm not anything like that. I forward deployed. We were the only people operating outside the wire, and I'm playing chess game with my life. So I believe in some of it, but we're not super high speed coming out of water with face paint on.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I'm not scuba or jump certified. Like I'm not that. No, and honestly, the I don't know I don't want to say love, but the extreme interest for firearm didn't even come from the military. That's all on my own.
Yeah.
Like the military didn't train me any of that stuff. They don't allow you to do that. Like they won't even allow you to change the dang pistol grip on your AR when you deploy downrange. So
Well, and I think we talked about that in the first episode we did with Walsh. Like the training that we get in the military, at least especially in the Air Force, is not very good. I mean, I know a guy who retired. He's a retired Green Beret, Army Special Forces, was with 7th Special Forces Group, and he was a weapons guy for them. And he's he's not a gun guy outside of the Army. Like
mhm.
he doesn't know. He doesn't kind of dive into the weeds like we do. He's just, what's the newest best thing? Okay, I guess I'll go with that. But doesn't really do the research and the deep dive like we do on things. So it's really interesting, and Walsh talked about that too. Like that's kind of the magic of our channel of not being we're just regular guys. Like a lot of this testing stuff and finding what we like is based on our own tests, like trial and error. And we bought stuff that we hated, and why did someone say this was awesome? This thing sucks. Let's do a
Yeah,
video about it.
I
Tell everyone else why
I
it sucks.
compare it to driver's ed, right? So just because you drive a car, I mean, you can have an opinion about a car even though you're not a professional race car driver, right?
Yeah.
And the amount of training we get in like driver ed in high school, that's the amount of training we get. And if you want anything above that, if you want to become that professional race car driver or even, a semi-professional, then you need to put in your own time and all of your own stuff. And it's not going to happen at your high school driver ed level. And that's how I
Yeah.
see the military and high school driver ed level for firearms. Now we learn a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Like we've been trained on nods and we got to do the whole sim munitions and
Hmm.
I mean 9 line salute report, size activity location unit time equipment. Like it's still burned into my head. Like
Yeah.
I've dug DFP armpit deep with the tallest member, did grenade sumps. I've done all of that even in the Air Force. I mean
Yeah.
the chair force. It was hard to do while sitting in a chair, but I did
Yeah.
get it done. So
Land navigation,
we've just
fix.
taken what we're provided and then we're expanding on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's even, I work in law enforcement now, and there's a lot of that still where it's like, I want to go to this class because I think it's going to make me better for my job. Work's not going to pay for that. I have to pay my way to go and take that class. So it's something
Mhm.
that we see a lot of, just because you were in the military doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to agree with us. We
No,
we
even
disagree amongst the four of us all the time.
yeah, and I've been to training to training with an E9, and he hadn't touched his AR since basic training. So it completely depends on the job that you have too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So with that, Barak, I know you didn't want to touch on what you were doing after vehicle maintenance, but that's another that kind of leads into a question I think we get a lot is what's up with the mask? Does that
yeah.
have to
So
do with that?
it does. There are probably like 10 to 15 different reasons why I have a mask, but yeah, that's one of them. So when you're going around and doing stuff, and I don't know where my life is going to take me from here, right? So
Yeah.
I'm out of the military, but that doesn't mean that I can't, do stuff where I don't want my face as public knowledge. But while I'm in the military, you're doing it was law enforcement side of things. So you're running sources and going undercover and stuff like that. The last thing that you need to be recognizable from YouTube.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we're some big deal and that oh everybody gonna want my autograph when I walk out. That's not what I'm saying. But I'd be willing to bet there are a bunch of YouTube guys now that never thought that they would be in the position that they're in.
Yeah.
So like Honest Outlaw, like he's just a regular dude in our backyard. And look how big he is. I love him video. He's a great dude. But if I saw
Yeah.
that dude in the mall, I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's Honest Outlaw, right? So I don't want
Yeah.
that. And then I also don't want, because being law enforcement and being overseas, there are a lot of people that think like you ruin their life, right?
Sure.
I mean, you were looking at child porn, but I'm the reason that your life is ruined. And I
Right.
don't want to ever be out with my family or for them to find my face on the internet and be able
Yeah.
to associate my family through social media or whatever and go after my family. So,
Yep. Yeah, I get you,
yeah,
man. That was one instance for me that was kind of a pucker moment. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I worked this arson case once, and it was right around the time of Halloween, and I'm sitting on my front porch and I'm handing out candy, and the guy that did the arson ended up serving 3 months in county jail. He should have got more. It was like $100,000 in damage that he got 3 months, whatever. So I'm sitting on my front porch, and this this dad and kids come up and they give him candy, and I say Happy Halloween, and the dad tells the kids, tell them thank you, and it hits us both at the same time, and I look up, and it's the dude that I just put in jail for arson, and he looks down. I'm sitting on my porch, and he goes, huh, and he walks off, goes to the next house. And I know my neighbor across the street was a firefighter. So I go over there and I was like, hey, man, like, this is just what happened. He knew that I was in law enforcement. Like, if I wake up tomorrow, or if you wake up tomorrow, my house is burnt to the ground, you know,
yeah,
tell them to
this
look
is
for
why.
this guy. And I remember texting my boss at that time, like, hey, dude, what's going on? Like, this guy was just at my house. Oh, yeah, his 3 months was up last night. So So I get that. I've had
Yeah.
some of those moments. Luckily, fortunately, nothing happened. Right, he didn't burn my house down. But yeah, man, some definite pucker moments for me in
I
my
just
career.
don't want it to be that easy, right? For people, I have a
Yeah.
big family, and some of my family members, they're not the best about their personal info on the internet, and I don't
Hmm.
want anybody to ever find my page and be able to draw the conclusion, whether that's from my military day, whether that future me because I'm doing something else that I probably shouldn't have my face all over the internet.
Right.
Um, yeah, I don't know, and I don't feel that I need to. I feel that
Right.
thin line defense isn't about us; it's about the people. That's how what I envisioned when I started it, and that's about the viewer and subscribers. Like, why do you need to see my face? You need to see what I'm trying to show you, the gun or the gear or whatever.
Yeah.
Personal
Yeah, I
preference,
get
I
that.
guess.
And that's something too. I don't know how many people that are watching or listening know this, but you have another YouTube channel, and I'm thinking back on it now because I've watched all your videos. You don't show your face on that one either.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that other channel and kind of what you do over there?
Yeah, so that started. I just wanted to help people out. Like I had done a couple things in my garage, so I wanted to help people out. Like I put a turbo kit on a FG2 8th gen Civic Si, and there was no instruction with that turbo kit, a big name brand turbo kit. No instruction, no nothing. So I did a whole video, hour and a half, and put it on the internet. And it's still to this day my most watched video.
Hmm.
So I'm just doing stuff to help other people out. That turned into reviewing e-boards. I bought an e-board that everybody said was the bee's knees and the best thing ever, and it broke. Like the wheel passed me while going 15 miles an hour. So I got mad and started e-skate review. And then I've kind of died off on that, and I've put a little bit of my car stuff on there. It's just like a normal person's whatever I think would make a cool video type thing. No rhyme or reason whatsoever.
So what I'm trying to remember now, what board was that everyone was that the kind of like the
Oh,
budget tier board?
it was, and right now it's beyond me. I don't have it anymore. I don't remember the name of it, honestly. It's been so long. And out of the memory of a goldfish, too many hits
It
to the
was
head.
like,
And
yeah, I'm trying to
it's
remember because I remember it's interesting because we have this group chat,
wow
you know,
go,
so we're always
wow go.
Wow Go. Okay, I was thinking Lily Go, but that was that mesh tastic thing that Walsh was messing with. Yeah, so the Wow Go, and there was some things that you liked about it, right? But there was some things that was like this
Yeah, I
definitely
mean
isn't the best.
it'd take longer than you want to talk about it. But engineering, it didn't have enough bearings in the rear wheel, which caused lateral pressure on the bearing, which causes it to fail.
Okay.
You can't have
Yeah.
lateral pressure on a roller bearing.
So it's interesting. I mean, you like I don't think regular people know that. Like I don't know lateral pressure. I don't even know what lateral pressure on a roller bearing is. Like what that means in the grand scheme. But I'm a moron when it comes to
Yeah.
that
Well,
type of stuff.
anybody that skateboarded, they know. Like even on a normal skateboard, you have a skateboard wheel and you put bearing on both sides. You have to have a spacer in between because
Hmm.
that spacer in between. So you put a bearing, the spacer, and a bearing. And then when you
Okay.
slide it on the trucks and you tighten the nut, it can only push in so far because that spacer makes contact, right?
Yeah.
Well, think about that spacer not being there. So now you can put all that pressure on the side, and on roller bearing like that, it causes them to prematurely fail.
So, but does that type of knowledge come from your vehicle mechanic days? Or, I mean, is that did you learn it through that, or is this just your own personal kind of journey down the skateboarding world
I
from back
think
in the
all
day?
three. So like when I was young, I tried to skateboard. I'm no good at it, but I tried to skateboard, and
Hmm.
then uh, mechanic in days, and then the e-boards too. Because like
Okay.
I'd taken that apart and I put it back together, and it never clicked until the wheel passed me at 15 miles an hour,
So
and I
did it
started looking at
shear?
why it failed, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's why it failed.
But it's kind of cool, like knowing you have that mechanical know-how and like the don't give up attitude that I can imagine you could look at if you knew that problem existed, you could be like, okay, well, I can fix this.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of ties into it must tie into other hobbies. Like I know about your car hobby, but what other hobbies uh, do you have that kind of lends to that knowledge base?
Yeah, really. I mean, these days I had to give up some hobby, kind of time, age, and money constraints. But
You're not that
really,
old. You're not that
it's
old, Joe.
yeah, I know. But some of my hobby, I am too old. Really, it come family, uh, cars, guns,
Mhm.
like in that order. Like if
Okay.
I had to sell every gun that I own except for my home defense or my personal defense to keep my car, I would.
Mm.
Um, but dude, I used to be huge into snowboarding. Loved it. It's just I have too many expensive hobbies. So video games is still in there. I've been
Yeah,
playing
and
Gran Turismo a lot.
that's not too expensive.
What video games?
Video games, yeah, unless you're
Yeah.
buying. Like I used to be, I was the type where I would buy the newest game every month. And some of my wife when we were poor, I was at E3, E4. She's like, we cannot afford $50, every 3 weeks, every month. You got to tone that down.
Hmm.
So I get that. Yeah, that's a now I look back. I'm like, okay, yeah, it was expensive back then, but it's kind of a cheap hobby to stay in with today.
Yeah, and I find myself leaning back to video game a lot more in the winter.
Oh yeah,
Like when it's summertime, like in the winter this morning, I got up, fired up Gran Turismo, and did a couple of like the 30-minute endurance races to get money. If this would have been summer, I would have been at some meet at some get together with my car, whether that be Cars and Coffee or
yeah.
the Chevy one. I would have been out with my car.
What about so is where's e-skateboards fall on that?
So they're dying off only kind of time. But this summer I went some, but again that's more of a summer thing. So
Okay,
if they're a good meet on the weekend, then maybe one morning I'll get up and go e-boarding, and then the next morning I'll take the car out. But that's another expensive hobby.
the car.
E-boards are no e-boards; they're not cheap.
Oh yeah, yeah. So um, do you want to get? I don't know if we're willing to share it, but what kind of car is it that you have that you're so excited about?
Oh yeah, I'll talk about car all day long. So I got my hands. It took a lot of work, but I have a 2023 Camaro ZL1. Yep.
Yeah, and that's like pride and joy.
Yeah, it's my number one dream car that I can afford. So I had a Civic, and I always said not my dream car, but it's the best car that I can afford. And now I've
Yeah.
upgraded to the my dream car that I can afford.
So what's next then? What's next to your?
Porsche GT3 RS.
So I've known Joe for so long. There was I don't. He'll probably remember the video. There's a movie where Anthony Hopkins drives
Yes,
like out of a.
Carrera GT.
Is a wasn't a GT3 RS?
No, it's a Porsche Carrera GT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
one of the best sounding engine in the world.
he like watching a movie. He can hear the noise of a car. Like that's this car, and
I'm a dork.
he yeah, but there's just things, man. Over the years of knowing Joe, things have happened that I feel like a moron sometimes. Like we were at school together, and we went to go get something like Walmart, or go to movies or something, and he was like, "How long has your car been sounding like this? Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "Your wheel bearings are bad. You can't hear this." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's been this is I've heard this for like years. And he was like, "Oh my god, okay, we're gonna buy some wheel bearings for you." And this is at school. Like we're other side of the country from where we live, but
Yeah,
of course, Joe has a backpack with
full
pretty
of
much every
tools.
wrench size you could think of and all the tools you need. He's like, "We're gonna buy wheel bearings. You're gonna watch me do one side, and then I'll watch you do the other side." And then we drove it afterwards. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so quiet."
It was the hub's internal seal bearings, but yeah, we just replaced
Yeah,
the whole
so
hub.
it's funny because I don't know, Joe. I don't know if I've ever told him this, but there's some inspiration there. Like we had I have a friend at work now who has a daughter that, he was explaining the same problem or very similar problem, um, with their brakes. Like the brake noise was just really bad, and the quote that they had from the dealership was like $1,600. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, dude. I was like, we could do those, dude. It's like $200 max. And he was like, what? I don't have the tools. I'm like, bring her over to my house. I have the tools. And I did the exact same thing. Like she's gonna watch me do one side, and I'll watch her do the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably 4 months ago now. Like her brakes, they work fine. They're not squeaky anymore. And so it's that, what, this is not going to be easy, but I'm going to walk you through it, and I'm going to show you how it's done, and then I'll
Yeah.
make sure you don't screw up when you do it.
I think that comes from living paycheck to paycheck, right? I'll never say that I'm poor. There was we live paycheck to paycheck, and there are months that were really tough, right?
Hmm.
But if you have a hobby, if you have a dream, if you have a passion, and you can't afford that passion, then you find a way, right? I've flipped cars. I've all the tool in my garage. Well, I can't say all, but I'd say 75% of the tool in my garage were bought with other people's money. So people like that, like, hey, do you do brakes? Yeah, I do, and I'll even teach you if you want to learn. Like 5% of people take me up on that. But they
Yeah.
would bring their vehicle over, and I'd be like, all right, pay me half of, here's the brakes that you need to buy. Just buy them and put them in the trunk, and then I'm going to charge you $100. Pay me half up front and half when you pick up your car. And then I would take that $50, man. I didn't have the tool and I went broke, and I would go and buy my torque wrench. That
Mm.
Craftsman torque wrench that I've been looking at for 6 months. I buy it and use it on their car, and then now I have
Yeah.
a torque wrench. So next time it's something else and something else. So
Yeah.
my toolboxes, everything. I mean, I don't have Snap on. I have, quite a few Craftsman tools. I believe in them. But there's Harbor Freight mixed in there. There's everything mixed in there.
So not the family side, but with your cars and the guns, then what kind of sparked that interest? And let's go with cars, I guess. What sparked that interest in in having a hobby that has to do with cars?
Honestly, the answer the same with cars and guns. I couldn't tell you because I've been in the car and guns. I can remember. So
Oh, okay.
the best memory I have of a car. Um, so we were in England. I was around 8 years old, and I saved up all my money. I'd buy the big car model, the diecast model like this, and they cost back then they were like $30, 20 pound,
Mhm.
30 pound, whatever it is. And I would save up my money all year and go to either the flea market. And at one time we were going to London on a trip, like on a MWR trip. So we go, and my biological mom, she decides that we can go to a toy store, famous toy store. I don't know what I call them. Eight. We go in there. They have cars. I saved up my money. I bought a red Lamborghini Diablo. Like it was new at the time. Lamborghini Diablo were fresh out at the time. And I walked outside. I'm the only boy, so my biological mom and an older and younger sister. So I'm the only boy, right? And nobody cares about the cars. And I'm holding this thing in the packaging, just in awe, 8 year old, just drooling over that car. And a red Lamborghini Diablo went up the road in downtown London.
Mm.
Only one that I've seen in my entire life. And I saw it while I'm holding my Lamborghini Diablo. I'm that guy that I buy Hot Wheel because they're a cool car and I'd like to have that in one day in real
Yeah.
life. But I immediately open the packaging because I can't stand to keep them in the
Yeah.
packaging. So I have like 150 cars downstairs.
I
I
bought
think I have, I think if, don't quote me on it, but I have to have about 15 uh, 6th gen Camaros because it's
I
one
was
of my
gonna
dream
say
cars.
and they're blue. Like how many of the blue Camaro ZL1 cars do you have?
I have 3 Hot Wheel in different variations, and then I have the bigger uh, one like this, and then I have like the muscle time or pure muscle or whatever it is, like the one that they enhance, right? They have
Mhm.
the wide body kit and the big spoiler
Right.
and looks all cool. Yeah, I have quite a few. I
Yeah,
have a problem. That's what I have. I have a problem. Thanks,
it's
Jason.
not a problem. I bought Joe as a surprise. I bought him a blue Camaro Lego kit,
Mhm.
and I don't think they make it anymore. It was like really hard to find, but I found it and I sent it to him, and he's like, I opened it immediately. I'm like, you can't buy those anymore, and he's like, oh well, I'm gonna build
Yeah.
this.
It was built within 30 minutes of getting it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not that person. I'm not going to leave it on a shelf in the original packaging.
yeah, and I'm not like that either. I mean, there's been very few things like I have some old 80s Gen 1 Transformers that are in a bucket because I'll break them out regularly, and me and my toddlers will play with Gen
Heck
One
yeah.
Transformers or the old. I don't know if you ever were familiar with Starcom, these little like magnetic space faring guys, and I have a bunch of their toys too. And dude, all these toys from the 80s and 90s, like, yeah, I popped them out of the package, and I'm playing with them with my kids now, and just building awesome memories. Like I can only imagine as an 8-year old holding a die-cast red Lamborghini Diablo and then have one, just the noise that they make. Like I can only imagine what that would do to an 8-year-old boy.
Dude. And I was freaking out, and I'm trying to get my sister, my mom's attention. And from my memory, I'm probably wrong, but they were just like, oh, cool. And just kept walking.
Joe's
Yeah.
a type. Outside of our academy, one time we were driving back, there was a car hauler, like
Hmm.
18 wheeler that was towing a bunch of cars, and there was some issue that they had, so they had to like pull some off to get maybe to retie down something. I don't know what was, but one of the cars that they pulled out, what was it, like an Aston Martin or
Yeah,
something?
Aston Martin DB9. Like
Yeah, and
any
so
car guy
Joe
out
was
there, just on the side of the road, a DB9 just sitting there.
yeah, Joe was like, pulled over, and he's getting out. He's like, I gotta check out this car. He's just side of the road walking around this car that's parked there, and the guy driving the truck is probably thinking Joe's gonna steal it. Joe's like, no man, just just looking at you. Just want to look at your car.
Yeah. For fun, I go to dealerships routinely on Sundays because they're closed in my state on Sunday. I don't want to waste anybody's time. But for fun, like something that I enjoy doing is going to dealership looking at cars on the lot.
Just walking around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My wife very well knows she doesn't have to worry about me finding another woman. She has to worry about me bringing home another car. Yeah.
Uh, and she's kind of a car lady herself, right?
Hmm. Yeah. She definitely likes cars. They're different levels, right? If I'm
Yeah,
level 100, she's level 70. She definitely likes her cars and stuff like that. I won't take anything away from that, but
yeah,
it's just is a little bit on a different level. Like I like
yeah.
researching them. She could care less.
She's just like,
She
just buy me one that
Yeah,
I like.
she likes the end result. She likes going fast. She's a great driver. She's a very skilled driver. Um, but up to that point, she could care less. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's kind of interesting because there was a podcast not recently. I think it was a few years ago. Danica Patrick was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I don't know if you ever had a chance to listen to it or watch that,
mm-mm.
but she's not a car girl. And Joe Rogan was like, "What do you mean you're not like you're Danica Patrick?" And she's like, "I don't know how many cylinders are in my car. I don't know." Like the it was surprising to hear her answer. And he was like, "How is that possible?" And she was like, "You don't need to know about cars to be a good driver."
Yeah, I think my wife she can change a tire on the side of the road, and she
Yeah.
can she can drag. She will gap people. It's ridiculous. She can drive. Yeah,
I
but
rode in Joe's Camaro. I joked with him because he said the first person he's going to take on a ride in that car was his wife, and I was like, I will fly out there and I will arm wrestle her to be the first person. Didn't happen, but
no,
I was out there
her,
recently. And Joe was like, "Hey, let's go. Let's take you for a ride." And I don't think I've ever cursed in a car before, like I did when we were riding in that thing. It's a beast of a vehicle. It's awesome, man.
mhm, is a very capable machine.
Yeah,
I wanted a car that was more capable than me, and I think I found it. I think I found it.
it's scary. For someone that's like, I'm not a car guy. I'm the type of guy that's like, is it going to get me to work? Um, can I go 70 miles an hour on the highway if that's a speed limit? Like, good enough for me. That Camaro is scary.
I'm the guy that will sleep on the floor to have a better car.
Yeah. Joe's dream house is a garage with a bunk.
Yeah, with a cot, maybe some type of cooking device, and somewhere to go to the bathroom.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean the garage number one priority. Everything else coming after that.
We joked about it on our last Thursday night live chat where when we played GTA 5, they have all these missions you can do, and Joe's goal, like he'll go and do the missions, and he'll pull his weight, and we'll have a blast. But his whole goal is like, I want to raise as much money as I can so I can buy the biggest house in GTA that has the biggest garage, so
Mhm.
I can buy all the cars and store them in the garage, and then yeah, Sundays he goes to dealerships. Like when he's bored, he'll go into GTA 5 and look at his cars
Mhm. That's
and
true,
try
dude.
to.
On Gran Turismo, I'm over. I think I'm at 211 cars. I bought a 3.5
It's
million dollar car today just to
just
have
you're
it.
living
Yeah, they're
vicariously.
right. I have a gold trophy in every race that you can do on that game, and I bought a three. I bought a car that I already have 6 car capable of winning that race.
Yeah, we didn't have that color.
True. I do have multiple color certain car. My Camaro and the GT3 RS I have multiple colors.
That's awesome, man. Well, we're coming up on our 42 minute mark here. Where can people, if you want them to follow you, where can they find out more information about you or your other YouTube channel? Where can they follow you at?
Thin line defense. I mean, that's the number one. If you want to see e-skate stuff, then it's Ramatorix e-skate reviews, Ramatorix. But I mean, that's kind of dying anyway, to be honest. So right here with the rest of my buddies on Thin Line Defense.
Awesome, man. Well, as always, man, I'm very appreciative that you took time out of your day to come and just answer some questions and kind of give a little bit more of a background idea of who you are as a person. I've known you for over a decade, for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of my best friends, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to sit and chat with you and kind of share my experiences and my knowledge of you with everyone else that's out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
All
I
right,
just want to say that you're doing an awesome job at this, and I look forward to these twice a week or twice a month. I look forward to them. So you're doing an
awesome.
awesome job, and keep up the great work, Jason.
Thanks, brother. All right, guys. Well, that's it for our episode today, and we'll catch you on the next one. Adios.